Hello, welcome to the France 24 interview. Well, last weekend's parliamentary elections in Turkey delivered a solid victory for Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan and a vote of confidence in his governing blend of economic liberalism and religious conservatism. Now, Erdogan says he's now focused on drafting a new Turkish constitution, one that would replace the current one that's been the law of the land since after a military coup 30 years ago. But opposition critics, they see a sinister agenda at work here. They fear that Erdogan and his allies in the ruling Islamist Justice and Development Party are seeking to lock in their grip on power, perhaps for years to come. Should Turks be afraid? Is it all just overblown? Here to give us a little bit of perspective is my guest today. Welcome, Solly Özel.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're a man of many titles. Let me begin with the main ones. You're a professor of international relations at Istanbul's Kadir Has University.
Yeah.
You're also a columnist for the Turkish daily Haberturk.
Yes.
And the reason you're here in Paris right now, you are a board member, let us say, of the Bosporus Institute.
Yeah.
It's a think tank that is one of its tasks promoting closer ties between France and Turkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's begin with Erdogan. Welcome.
Yeah.
He has a solid majority here. But let me just put this question to you. We're all talking about his big victory, solid majority. What he didn't get was that sweeping two-thirds mandate that he would have needed to unilaterally just go aside and rewrite the Constitution. He has to work with the opposition.
Erdogan got 50% of the vote. I think for a third-termer, this should be the envy of any democratic politician anywhere in the world. I mean, you hardly get this in authoritarian systems these days, don't you? And anyway, it's a great success for Erdogan and for the ruling party. And I think by now the ruling party is Erdogan. And as you said, he is 4 votes short of being able to draft a new constitution by himself.
So near it, yet so far. He has to work with the opposition.
I mean, if you want, a lot of commentary suggests that the electorate did just such a balance, fine-tuning, that, you know, they gave him incredible support. They gave him a mandate to do what he wants to do. But they said, but we also want you to work with the opposition in the parliament. We don't want you to do it all on your own, okay?
Will he?
He said he wouldn't. I mean, we have this habit or the tradition by now of him appearing at the balcony and basically making victory speeches. And this one, like the previous ones in 2007 and 2002, were conciliatory, reassuring and all that. I must say, though, between the 2002 and the 2011 ones in particular, there's a major difference, and there were lots of differences, and we can get to them. And that was in 2002, his first thing was, we will pursue the EU project, whereas this one, he hasn't mentioned it at all.
Well, let's talk about that EU project briefly, since you brought it up. It's no secret, it's out of the bag, that for now, Turkey's EU aspirations seem to be off, way on the back burner. And you're here with to promote ties between Turkey and France.
Yeah.
France is a big showstopper, if you want to call it that.
Yes, and I think, I also find the French policy rather unwise and in the long run detrimental to France's own interests, as well as I find this comatose situation in Turkey-EU negotiations detrimental to the interests of both Turkey and the European Union. And so we will see whether or not either side is going to make moves to unblock, if you will. What
do you think is motivating France's policy, that is, especially Nicolas Sarkozy's opposition to Turkey, wanting to be a partner with Turkey, but saying the buck stops here, Turkey is not part of Europe? What is behind that?
I suppose this is his ideological inclination, and he also must think that there is a return there, there is a payback there politically, and he does it. I know domestically, indeed, yes. I know plenty of French politicians and bureaucrats who are not particularly impressed by that reasoning, but he is the president of the republic. And since this is a monarchie républicaine, if you will, then what he says goes. But it is becoming rather, as I said, detrimental to France's interest, business interests, and in my judgment, to political interests as well. And as a result of all that animosity, although both Erdogan and Sarkozy are very much like one another, they are also intensely disliking one another, I think.
It's interesting fascinating. But this policy then, this sense of the EU snubbing Turkey, if I can use that word, it's really encouraged, or correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to have encouraged Turkey to reach out to other neighbors in the region, to really reshift its foreign policy.
In a way, if you, I mean, you can read the Prime Minister's victory speech also as a message to the European Union, first by not mentioning them, and second saying that these elections in Turkey and his victory in Turkey is a message to the rest of the world, but particularly to Sarajevo, to Cyprus, to Baku, to Gaza, to Jerusalem. So he presented Turkey in that speech as Turkey nowadays sees itself as the center of a vast geography that includes the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the Middle East.
Sounds like the Ottoman Empire.
That's the last period of the Ottoman Empire because it was vaster. But no, the thing is, it is an island of stability as it stands, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the Kurdish issue. And if it can deal with the Kurdish issue, that stability is going to continue.
You're reading my mind, yeah.
It is. I mean, its economy is doing well, certainly much better than every country in Europe almost, and therefore Turkey sees itself as a stabilizer and security producer, if you will, in the regions that surround it. I mean, look at Syria. The Syrian debacle cannot be handled without active assistance and participation of Turkey, for instance.
And you use the word debacle. I mean, how is Turkey realistically able to juggle this? The foreign minister has what's called that zero problems with the neighbor policy. That's easier said than done when you have Syria right now in a brutal crackdown.
Yes.
How do you reconcile that?
Well, I mean, I personally take the zero problem not as policy but as principle, and obviously we've seen the end of the limits of that principle. As you said, I mean, if you have Syria as your neighbor and they are not going to be listening to the voice of reason, no matter what you do, especially, I mean, maybe your viewers, just a reminder to your viewers that in 2005, when Syria was totally isolated after the murder of Hariri, it was the Turkish government that actually gave cover to them, and they may have saved the regime at that time of isolation. So if you wouldn't listen to a Turkey that has really done quite a lot to protect you to a certain extent, then who would you listen to? But I guess for the Syrian regime, this is a matter of life and death, and they're not reasoning.
And right now, the result is Erdogan has not a zero problem, but a big problem with Syria.
It has a big problem with Syria, and he has, in the past couple of weeks, moved very fast and forward and taken a very strong position against the regime. But the thing is, as somebody was saying, Turkey now still has relations with the regime. They may not be as inimic, as friendly as they were, but Turkey also has openings to the opposition. I mean, the opposition figures met already twice in Turkey, once in Istanbul and once in the south of Turkey. Therefore, Turkey has actually channels open to everyone concerned.
So the engagement has helped Turkey in a sense.
And now that the elections are out of the way, I'm sure that the Turkish government is going to be even more engaged, more intensely engaged with Syria.
That we'll have to obviously wait and see. I want to get back domestically. We talked about the Kurdish question. You said I was going to ask you about the Kurds, obviously.
Yeah. It is the number one issue.
Erdogan said before the elections, he said, Kurdish problem solved. Really?
In our wishes, it is. But what you said in your opening remarks, that is, we are set to rewrite our constitution. We have to come up with a new constitution, which will be prepared by the National Assembly. And that constitution is supposed to be a democratic constitution. And one of the most critical issues in it is, how do we define Turkish citizenship? Do we ethnically define it, or do we define it in terms of universal values? And that, of course, goes to the center of the Kurdish issue. Who are the Kurds? How do we define our citizenship so that it encompasses the Kurds as well? And the Kurds have a lot of social, cultural, and political demands. Some of those political...
Including autonomy.
Including, it's called democratic autonomy.
Democratic autonomy.
But I mean, the thing is, you can want all you want. I mean, the Scottish National Party wants to secede from Britain, but...
He's going to have to strike a balance. People hope they don't return to the type of war we saw, civil war.
The most important thing is to stop the war, and I think the vote for the independent Kurdish candidates, and that there are now 36 independent candidates affiliated with that party inside the parliament, suggests that I think the general Kurdish public, as well as the general Turkish public, wants a resolution of this matter without violence.
And briefly, in the little time that we have left, people saying basically Erdogan already looking towards 2023, the 100th anniversary of the Turkish Republic. This is a man who still wants to be in power. He wants a strong presidency. He's becoming authoritarian. He's becoming a dictator.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as calling him a dictator, but he does want to be in power in 2023, and it is not a secret that he wants a presidential system for Turkey, which is why he asked the electorate to give him a mandate with over at least 330 seats so that his party could do it alone. But the fact of the matter is they have 326 seats, so they cannot really draft the constitution by themselves without negotiating with anyone. He is a very strong leader with a very strong majority, and we've seen over the last 2-3 weeks that there is also a tendency to assert that power and authority. Yeah.
We do have to edit there. I will note that there are several journalists who've been locked up
there are
charges
of journalists that are
attempting to
locked
overthrow
up,
the government.
Some of what especially the Prime Minister said about certainly a couple of them, in my judgment, doesn't really cut muster.
And Soli Özel, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. We've been talking today about the aftermath of last weekend's Turkish parliamentary elections in which Prime Minister Erdogan got a very solid majority, perhaps not enough, though, to lead unilaterally. He'll have to talk to the opposition. We'll have to see whether or not he does that. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.